David Seymour.
Mr Speaker, a few weeks ago I attended a citizenship ceremony in Auckland, and I could talk about all of the facts and figures and the policy statements about the projections for our economy, and all of them are very good. But the most sincere endorsement of where this country is headed, I saw in 431 souls from 57 different countries making the ultimate endorsement of New Zealand, taking on New Zealand citizenship, throwing their lot in with the good ship Aotearoa. And it is amazing that one of the things that we hear the most complaint about from some people around the House is actually one of the most positive things we have going for us. It is people voting with their feet and increasingly coming to New Zealand. And so this is the result of the terrible Rogernomics experiment of the last 30 years, is that more and more people want to come and live more and more prosperous lives in the most beautiful country on earth. And it's been interesting to see the debate around this statement unfold, because the opposition are really in a bind. They want to criticise the government for certain things, but they're also exactly the things that they would do so much more of. Take, for example, the criticism we heard of child support legislation, or at least the implementation of it by the Inland Revenue Department. And of course, what they're not saying is that for every little bit of difficulty we've had introducing that law, it would have been infinitely more complex and difficult to have a tax-free threshold, to have a capital gains tax, to start having supermarkets dividing up their floor space to decide which parts were GST claimable and which parts were not, all of which were promised by the opposition during the election. And today they come and criticise the IRD for not implementing relatively simple child support legislation. But how much worse would it have been had they had their way at the election? Well, they didn't. And another example is watching the indignation of a certain member about solid energy. And he can criticise and criticise solid energy and its performance as much as he likes, but he forgets that as he does this, he indicts the very ownership model that his party defends and says that it would like to expand. The conceited answer from the member, Mr Speaker, he's identified himself now, is that there's nothing wrong with the policy or the model. It's just it would work better if good people like me were running it. Mr Speaker, I believe that is a fatal conceit, and the truth is that what's missing from this budget policy statement...
Point of order, Clayton Cosgrove.
To table a timeline which is not publicly available, detailing in excess of 50 points of warning that the government got over solid energy.
It's not appropriate to interrupt a member's speech in order to seek to table a document.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. But the truth is that this government should actually be going further in the opposite direction to the one he would advocate. There is never a right time to sell a business with an uncertain future, and the best time to sell is at any time, actually now. This is not a business that government should be in, and there are a number of other SOE businesses that government should be getting out of. They all tell us about the revenue stream that the taxpayer gets from these assets, but they never talk about the risk. Well, Mr Speaker, the government should not be in the business of accepting the risks inherent in commercial enterprises. Another thing that is missing, I'm afraid to say, is actually tax reform. And I had somebody come to see me in my electorate office just the other day and brought home the practicalities of having a number of different punitive tax rates. Every year, we heard this morning, $750 million gets left on the table by people paying too much tax, and I found out about just $8 million of that this morning. It is low-income people getting their cheques from the Auckland Electricity Consumer Trust withheld at the top rate when they should be paying a lower rate. And if this government really believes in success, really believes in meritocracy, and really believes in a practical and easily applied tax system, then what they should be doing is removing top tax rates that have minimal fiscal impact, but they send a message for every New Zealander that your efforts don't really make a difference difference, and if they do, we're going to take not just more money in proportion to what you earn, but more of it off you. And what I'll finally close on, Mr. Speaker, is that what's really missing from this budget policy statement is not a forecast for this year or next, but where we will be in decades to come if we do not adjust our long-term settings for policies such as superannuation affected by demographic change. And I look forward to talking to more and more members around the House about what exactly we can do about that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pleasure to rise and speak.